now I have a machine gun.
Ho, ho, ho.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
This thing rules. The thing rules.
Oh, hey, what's up? I'm Brian Altano.
And I'm Max Scoville.
This is a show where we discuss something we love,
Unpack why we love it,
explain where it came from,
try to remember our first impressions of it,
share our weird stories about it,
maybe learn something new about it along the way.
but first and foremost, we're here to celebrate the fact that this thing rules.
What's your favorite Christmas movie?
I mean, it's got to be Home Alone.
Right
That's the
on.
one
I
that
mean, I feel like I was expecting, that Die Hard is always the,
Yeah.
Home
Do
Alone,
we
but
have
Home
to do
Alone
that
is
immediately?
we don't have to. But I was just watching Home Alone, and it occurred to me
Yeah.
that there's something very weird where two of the most beloved Christmas movies of ever, really, both involve a grown man stepping on broken glass with his bare feet.
Yes. Yeah.
That happens in Home Alone. That happens in Die Hard. What the fuck?
I'm okay. Just to get this out of the way, I'm fine with the Die Hard as a Christmas movie debate. My only issue with it is it puts it in a situation where you would feel weird watching it throughout the rest of the year. Like, I don't watch Home Alone in the summer, but I would watch Die Hard in August. I would especially watch Die Hard with a Vengeance in August because that's a summer ass movie.
Yeah, I mean, Die Hard was released in July.
Yeah. So sure, great. But like I watch Home Alone at Christmas because that is a very Christmassy music. When you put on like Christmas jazz playlists or Christmas music or whatever, invariably you're gonna get a bunch of Home Alone songs on there, right? And you don't really get any. I don't know if they play like the Die Hard theme song or whatever. If like some orchestra is knocking that one around.
That's
a
really good point. Like, I feel like the soundtrack in particular.
Soundtrack goes a long way, yeah. But I mean, in terms of like the Christmas movies that I think of when I think of Christmas movies, the big ones are, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Home Alone, Gremlins, weirdly enough, which is like one of those things where it's like Christmas movies to me are for the most part movies that you can share with your children, and Gremlins is one of those movies where like I probably showed that to my kid too early, but she was really into it. And was somehow more scared of the second one, which is sillier and goofier and way less of not at all a Christmas movie, really. But the first Gremlins is a Christmas movie to me. And then obviously A Christmas Story. And A Christmas Story is weird to me because that movie is a movie that no one I knew growing up owned. Like, we had Home Alone on VHS. We had... National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation on DVD eventually, and all the other formats. Maybe you taped it off a TV or something like that. But A Christmas Story was one of those movies that was just always on for it was on different channels for 3 days straight, hovering around the 23rd, 24th, and 25th.
That was one that completely missed me. I didn't understand what it was. I mean, the name kind of gives it away. But I remember seeing, I think, merch for it, like action figures or some kind of collectibles. And there was always a level of kind of curiosity when something would show up as an action figure or like a something in like Suncoast Video or whatever, where I was like, this feels like I should care about it. It should be in my orbit. And I didn't fully know what that was. And it feels very like Peanuts, Yeah,
it is very live action Peanuts, except for, you can see and understand the adults for the most part. A lot of them are belligerent alcoholics, but other than that, what makes it confusing to me was that as a kid, I think maybe until I was like 25 or 30, I didn't see that movie straight through in one sitting. I saw that movie in pieces. And so like, I didn't know, cause like what that movie is just like there's a plot sort of, but it's mostly like a series of like vignettes that are kind of tethered together that lead into Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. But all of the events leading up to it are just like they happen over the course of like several days or maybe even weeks. Like one day he goes to school, he's got like this big puffy jacket on, the next day he's at the mall and there's like a slide. Like there's all these different things. And so when you're a kid and it's just kind of like floating in the background on on a small fuzzy television, and you're just picking up bits and pieces between eating like candy and having hot chocolate and opening up presents and stuff like that. You don't really ever think of it as a movie. You just think of it as like almost like one of the it's like having a fireplace on, right? Like it's just there.
No, I get that. That's a specific kind of movie, and it's hard to tell if it's the structure of the movie or the fact that it was how I consumed the movie. But certain movies that were always on repeat on like TBS or TNT, like Forrest Gump and Shawshank Redemption are two that come to mind there. Yeah. And it's interesting because they're also movies that are structured very vignette-like. Like they're, you know, the scenes are all kind of, they can be consumed in out of order almost. And there's an overarching story. But no, as for Christmas movies, something that occurred to me that's kind of wild is Chris Columbus, despite having a name of a different holiday, has like a pretty like bonkers track record for Christmas movies. He wrote Gremlins. He wrote Young Sherlock Holmes, which is an extremely good Christmas movie that is basically an Indiana Jones name and another name. He did Home Alone 1 and 2, and he did the first two Harry Potter movies. He directed both of those. And like Harry Potter's a whole fucking thing, whatever. But like it does...
Harry Potter and the whole fucking thing.
The Harry Potter and the whole fucking thing. Like I don't want to get into that whole J.K. Rowling can of transphobic worms, but like those movies do, or those books do an interesting thing of having they you know, they're all framed around like a year of school, and they always have Christmas break structured into it somehow. And it's sort of a nice, I don't know, like I always dug it. And like the movies aren't inherently Christmas movies. They cover like they cover like each one is a year, but Christmas comes in the middle of that structure. So it's always sort of this, you know, repeatable thing there. And I mean, I guess those movies came out around the holidays. I think they were like Thanksgiving movies when the first ones came out. Whereas Lord of the Rings, which is like my go-to Christmas movie that has nothing to do with Christmas whatsoever, that's my go-to. Like that's my Christmas movie that's not a Christmas movie. Like I don't know how this started. Those movies all premiered around Christmas, and they came like one after the other. And it was like, I remember, you know, around Christmas break in school, like going to go see them in theaters with my mom. And now I'm like... Now I just put them on, like it's sort of like a almost just religious observance where I'm just like, gotta put them on. We realized this last year was one of the worst years of my life, just a real shit show. And it occurred to me that we did not finish Return of the King last year. We got to the end of the first disc of the extended edition, and we didn't finish it. And they didn't throw the ring in the volcano, and I think that jinxed me. I think that's what screwed me up. So this year we're fucking finishing it. But no, like
you got to.
I love that those aren't Christmas movies, but they are about returning a bad gift and how much of a pain in the ass it is.
Yeah, a really bad gift.
And there's a big guy with a white beard who shows up.
I'm sort of and it's weird because Star Wars were summer movies for a really long time, but then when they kind of came roaring back again with The Force Awakens, that was a Christmas movie. Like it's not a Christmas movie, but it was, you know, you and I remember we went to go see that on opening night. And I had like a big Chewbacca hoodie on. We were both wearing like probably scarves and stuff like that, maybe little hats. And it was cold out in San Francisco, and the local news interviewed us. And that felt like it for a while there. It felt like, and I think they did the same thing with Rogue One.
No, it was each one every year was coming out at Christmas time. It was great
at Christmas time, and they did that for all of them except for Solo. I believe was the only one that came out in the summer.
And they cursed it.
Yeah, and they cursed it. But also, The Force Awakens ends on like an ice planet, you know, and like Han gets he gets a nice parka again or whatever. He gets out there, and you know they're all wearing. There's a lightsaber fight in the snow, and so I'm like, there was a while there where I was kind of like, this is sort of a Star Wars movie. And what happened around the same time was I think we realized at our house that like we were buying a Christmas tree every year, but I wasn't like, I didn't really love it. We hadn't really, my wife and I had only been dating for a couple years, and we hadn't really built up a collection of ornaments yet. And I didn't have any of the ones I had from when I was a kid. Those are all still like in my dad's attic, and maybe he puts them on his tree or whatever every year. And so that year I went out and I got like a whole bunch of Star Wars ornaments. So Star Wars is like a very Christmassy thing to me. And at the same time, I was also getting the Lego Star Wars advent calendars. So watching a bunch of Star Wars movies over Christmas break, and then opening up the Lego Star Wars advent calendar every day, getting a C-3PO that had a Santa hat and all that, an R2-D2 minifig that had like reindeer's ears and stuff, and then having a bunch of Star Wars stuff on my tree, including I bought string lights. They all died because they were super cheap, but I got Boba Fett, Stormtrooper, and R2-D2 string lights. So there was a while there where our tree was like obnoxiously Star Wars. And we've toned it down a little bit, or a lot since then. I think one year I literally had a Darth Vader helmet on top of it. And my wife was like, can we get Santa up there? This is ridiculous.
So funny.
Yeah, it was too much. But for a while there, that was like, and it probably will be again. I'm feeling like, I don't know. I've been really into Skeleton Crew. I loved Star Wars Outlaws. I want to rewatch Andor. So I'm feeling like I'm going to throw on a bunch of Star Wars movies for Christmas this year, because they just, I don't know. They don't necessarily, even though a lot of those movies take place in the desert and stuff like that.
No, I get it.
There's a feel good vibe to them.
The funny thing is that like Star Wars, there's no Christ in Star Wars. There's Christ in Christmas, but they don't have that. They do have Life Day, which is their version of Christmas, which was introduced in the infamous 1979 holiday special, which is one of the worst Star Wars things ever made. Like, I'm all for watching bad shit and enjoying it. That is like unwatchably bad. Like I've tried so many times. I can't even like on like a silly, campy background level. I'm just like, man, it's like not even fun to look at. It's rough. But it's weird how like that was the first overlap of, Star Wars and Christmas, but like Star Wars has a day. They do like May the 4th, which totally works. But like that's when the original movies came out, and the prequels all came out in the summertime. Like they're always around May, May, June. And it's just weird how like Star Wars has kind of like shoehorned its way into being like a holiday window thing, and no one second guessed it. But yeah, I could see that. Let's talk about actual Christmas movies though.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on Lethal Weapon?
I'll allow it.
I mean, you should, because it's a fucking Christmas movie.
Shane Black does a lot of
Shane Black and Chris Columbus are like the two Christmas movie directors, and they have very different viewpoints on it. Where Chris Columbus, I'm looking at his Wikipedia, he also produced Jingle All the Way and the Christmas Chronicles, whatever that is. He's producing Nosferatu, which comes out this year, which is apparently a Christmas movie too. Go figure. But
interesting.
It's funny how like those are all like his. Those are he makes very pro Christmas movies. Shane Black's entire his theme, his genre, if I had to put it, is like Christmas in LA sucks. That is the theme of like all of his movies. Like he did, Lethal Weapon 1 and 2 are both Christmas time, I think. I don't know if 2 is or not. I don't remember, but 1 for sure. It opens with someone doing a line of blow and jumping out a window while like Christmas lights are everywhere or whatever. And
famous Santa.
Just real. There's like a big, fight between Gary Busey. And I think there's like Shane Black's entire thing is like, there are Christmas lights near palm trees and I want to kill myself. Like that's his general tone for stuff. And like he did Iron Man 3, which is the only Christmas MCU movie up until like the holiday special they did for Guardians, which again was a cute Star Wars nod right there. But he also did, oh my God, I'm drawing like Long Kiss Goodnight, which is one of my favorites.
That's an awesome movie.
It's a Christmas movie. It's all about Gina Davis at Christmas time and teaming up with Sam Jackson. And
was there Christmas stuff in his Predator movie, Predators?
No, that was at Halloween.
Yes, that's right.
Which was probably why it didn't work. It should have been Predator Christmas.
I remember you and I walking out of that movie and like recognizing it had a lot of problems. But one of them we were both like, "Where was the Christmas stuff? What'd you do?"
Yeah, no, it seems like it's really a key component. I think Last Boy Scout has Christmas in it. What are the other? Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, that's a big whole Christmas thing. There's a lot. It's kind of amazing how his entire that's his thing. That's just what he makes. I don't think The Nice Guys is Christmas. I feel like that's a summertime thing.
I don't remember. It's been a minute since I watched that movie, even though I love it.
Shane Black and Chris Columbus are both like two like kind of hilarious like batting average for making Christmas and Christmas adjacent films. One of my favorites is Bad Santa, which is like kind of a guilty pleasure, but also like, it's doesn't really hide what it is. It's in the name. It's called Bad Santa. Like it's fucking offensive. That's sort of. I love
that movie, and I appreciate it because it feels like it's. I'll put it this way: millions of Christmas movies come out every year now. Like it's actually absurd. Like the Hallmark is an entire machine gun factory of like chintzy, bad, cheap
machine gun factory.
They're just like here's fucking shitty.
I got where you're going with that. The Hallmark machine gun factory seems like a weird. Somebody's just working at the front desk. They're like, no, sorry, no, you got the wrong. No, we don't make keepsake ornaments. No, you have the wrong number. Yeah, no, we make machine guns.
they've
very different.
They've gone completely berserk with the Christmas Machine Gun Factory over the last few years. And one is that they have stores open all year that sell ornaments. They're constantly like they release new ornaments all year, but they make like dozens of Christmas movies, and every streaming channel has to have its own sort of bespoke curated collection of Christmas movies that they absorbed into their library, but also new ones that they made. Right? They're just constantly. So for something like Bad Santa to break in and find a place, it's really tough to do that. And like I know they made a bunch of sequels that aren't as good, but it's really hard to make like a modern classic Christmas movie because the competition is kind of crazier than ever.
There is a lot that gets churned out. I'd say my favorite most recent Christmas movie is Krampus, which it's one of those ones that I think it's better every time I watch it, but it's still like a 7 out of 10. Like I love so much stuff about it, but it's definitely like it's one of those ones where I appreciate it more that it's sort of still around. I think it's kind of gotten rolled into some people's like Christmas rotation for like horror nerds or whatever, but it's also like, I don't know, I'll watch it with somebody who hasn't seen it for the first time and they're like, yeah, it was all right. And I'm like, you're right, it was all right, but it had monsters and Christmas stuff and it has cool creatures, which I appreciate a whole lot. Yeah, Bad Santa. They made a sequel to it, which was one of the worst. It was one of those really bad comedy sequels where they pretty much just recreate. They just basically tell the joke again, but louder.
Yeah,
like it's the same. And the only thing I appreciate it was they got the same. They got Thurman Merman to come back, but he was like 40 or whatever. There was one joke in that movie. I remember sitting through it like on a plane or something, and just doing that thing where I'm like perched, like waiting to laugh. Like I want to fucking laugh.
It just doesn't come.
I'm waiting, and there's one part. Like most of it, I was just kind of groaning and eye rolling. There's one joke in there that absolutely fucking killed me, like in tears, fucking laughing. And I don't remember what it was. And it's probably not worth rewatching an entire like 2-hour movie to find that one joke. But like, I just remember
a penny in the litter box.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But no, like the first one is so deeply cynical and so miserable. And it's also just Billy Bob Thornton is the strangest man because like. Okay, what do we know him for? He was in Armageddon. He was in Sling Blade. He wore a necklace of Angelina Jolie's blood around his neck.
Yeah.
You're just like, what's your deal? What's your deal? And apparently, when he was making Bad Santa, there's the scene where he comes up the escalator like shithouse drunk and punches like a styrofoam reindeer in the face and smashes it, which I think that like made me shoot soda out of my nose when I first saw it in theaters, and still makes me laugh a whole lot. Apparently, he was just like straight up plastered making that. Like that was very much like method acting right there, which again, is that just Billy Bob Thornton? I don't know.
Have you seen Black Christmas?
No.
The original?
Is that that's the one that was like the prototype for Halloween, pretty much, kind of.
Yeah, so that's from 1974. I don't remember if we talked about this with Ryan Scott when he came on to talk about Halloween.
He mentioned it,
Yeah. I highly, highly recommend it. It is, despite the title, a very almost entirely white, if not entirely white, but it is a very dark and sinister film that has like a really messed up, chilling ending that people have been debating about for like 40 years, 50 years since, or whatever it is.
Say no more.
Yeah, so it's really, really good. A couple years ago, I enjoyed on sort of a similarly adjacent the Violent Night.
Oh yeah, I missed that one. Wait, did I see that one?
It's David Harbour just killing people dressed as like a mall Santa. And
honestly cannot.
It's fun enough.
I cannot remember if I watched that or not. I might have watched it in like an eggnog haze.
I watched Terrifier 3 the other day, which is extremely Christmas, but also just if you haven't seen the first two of those, like just I'll put it this way: if you have a weak stomach to like gore, then just don't.
Yeah.
But if you're cool with that, go with it. There's also Rare Exports, which you put me onto.
Ooh, that one really creeped me out. That's good. That one's really. There's a shot where like, oh god, there's a shot where like a kid just like looks over his shoulder, and there's just like it's one of those things where like it's not like a jump scare. It's the opposite, where the thing is just in plain sight, and it's just the way it's presented is really nerve wracking. Did
you know the director of that did Sisu?
No shit, really. That checks out. Okay.
Same dude.
Sisu definitely not a Christmas movie. That's just
No,
like,
definitely
yeah,
not.
that's
But
live
yeah,
action
Rare
Looney
Exports
Tunes.
it's about a bunch of people that try to kidnap Santa, right?
They think they find Santa. They're like, we gotta catch him. It's just like really, it's very odd, very creepy.
I will say,
very Finnish. I think
growing up, some of the ones that were always on in the background that I never really got into, like definitely before my time. Like the thing is, like I'll put it this way: Christmas Story. I thought that movie was made in like the 1950s.
Same.
And
that fucked me up.
It's
In the
from
same way
1983.
right? It's like the same thing with the Wonder Years, where like it would be on TV, and I was like, "Is this old? I don't understand what a period piece is because I'm a child."
Yeah, no, I found out like 10 years ago that A Christmas Story is as old as Return of the Jedi, and it's not as old as, I don't know, my grandfather.
Hey, you want to know something even more fucked up? You know zinc, the mineral.
Yeah,
You know how you take zinc when you have a cold and it helps the cold go away?
yeah.
Up until 1979, scientists didn't think it did anything. They were like, you got zinc in your body. We don't know what it does.
I mean, fair, okay.
And then I don't know, somebody was
times
like-
I get a cold and I take it, but I'm also taking everything, just pretty much throwing everything into
They
the
didn't.
well.
It didn't even occur to them. They were just like, "This is a kind of rock you got in your body, but yeah, we don't know why or what it could, what taking more of it could do. No fucking clue." So the idea of zinc as a cold medicine or as like a remedy for anything is newer than Star Wars, which is, that's up there with
That's
like
so weird.
umbrellas are older than candles by 1,000 years or whatever.
Yeah, it's a weird life. It's
a-
also a wonderful life.
That's another one.
That's one of the ones where like I didn't ever like that. Always felt like, and here's the thing. I grew up with a dad who was into like Nick at Night, and he would put on the Munsters and Mr. Ed and a bunch of other dumb shit that like I didn't realize until later on. I was like, oh, my dad had a very stupid sense of humor. Like he's watching a show about a fucking talking horse and he's 35. What's like, who does that? And then it's like, then I grew up and I'm like, me, I would do that. But It's a Wonderful Life was like one of those movies where I very much understood it, but I was never interested in looking at it as a kid. Like, no disrespect to people who find that, cherish that movie, and it's part of their, annual tradition and stuff like that. It was never really one of those movies where I wanted to sit down and watch It's a Wonderful Life from start to finish.
I mean, it's black and white, and
Yeah.
at no point do you see a talking horse or a guy dressed like Frankenstein. Like it's kind of,
Exactly.
as far as looking at something, there's nothing really. Like you have to be paying attention to nuanced plot points.
Yeah.
I think my mom hates that one, so she has no fondness. I think she doesn't like sappy stuff.
Yep.
But I don't think they started making like NECA toys of Jimmy Stewart or Clarence or whatever. It's
like black and white.
But I realized that like, oh, this is a thing that is like a major pop culture blind spot. I should check it out. And so I watched it like late, kind of not really knowing what the deal was, and then being like, oh, this is kind of cool. And like I appreciate it as a film. I think it's
Me too.
it's a neat one. But again, it's not like I don't feel compelled to watch it. It's kind of it's a different generation. One that I mean, Love Actually is a big one. That's like a lot of people's favorite, which is also has aged like not milk, but maybe like yogurt.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, which of the things that are bad in here are supposed to be bad? And it's got a bunch of just deeply problematic behavior by a lot of people, and like I kind of appreciate that because people are
problematic.
I'm problematic, but also people are problematic.
You keep showing up to my house on my front doorstep with fucking signs.
I want to show up with do that thing, and I just hold the sign, but it just says "fuck you," just large swears.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that whole thing is just weird. But what I appreciate about Love Actually is that it has some teeth. Like it's not entirely sappy. It does a good job of cutting the sappiness with stuff that's like a little bit off color, a little bit off beat, or just has a little bit of an edge. Like Bill Nighy's whole plot point is kind of sweet. Like he's just very mean to his manager the whole time, and then he just sort of shows up at his house drunk, and he's like, "Let's get pissed and watch porn." And I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's sweet in a warped, roundabout kind of way. It's like people are weird, nuanced, complicated creatures, and I don't know if Richard Curtis particularly hits the nuance, but he does a good job of making it kind of entertaining at the very least. So
Can we collectively? I don't even think I need to twist your arm in this one, but can we come together and agree publicly even though this is a show about the stuff we love, that the Polar Express is horrifying.
The Polar Express is a fucking nightmare hell ride into Satan's asshole. What is that fucking movie?
The scene where he makes when they bring hot chocolate out for everybody, it gets me. It gives me anxiety. So that movie was it was like going to a preview event, advanced screening of that feeling you got the first time you saw somebody with 6 fingers in Midjourney.
That's a good way of putting it.
You know, like that movie was like the discomfort you get of seeing like those weird AI pictures of like Trump saving somebody during a flood, you know, that aren't real.
And he's got 17 fingers or whatever.
Yeah, and it was that feeling that movie gave me that. Then
no, I mean that was there is a part where the train goes into goes down one mountain and they see another mountain in the distance, and at that point they are squarely in the uncanny valley. And Robert Zemeckis really he
loves that uncanny valley.
Loves that shit. Yeah, he did the Angelina Jolie one, the Beowulf. He did that, which was just like, and it's wild because like he's just kind of he's just banging that drum of like weird CG people, and then James Cameron was just like, bloop, here's Avatar, mic drop, and like, no, Polar Express. I had the book as a kid, which I loved. It's a beautiful book. It's I'm totally drawing a blank on the guy's name, but he did Mysteries of Harris Burdick and The Garden of Abdul Ghazazi. Wonderful illustrator, and like the book is very like sweet and simple and like kind of just poignant and like quiet. And then they were like, what if we had the scariest little boy with glasses you've ever seen who's fuck shit annoying, and then they got the dancing elves and the Coco, and Tom Hanks is the conductor, and like just a whole weird thing. But that said, you know, I know some people are nostalgic for it probably, but it's like, I don't, it's kind of in the same way that I don't like looking at It's a Wonderful Life because it's not particularly interesting. I would say I don't like looking at the Polar Express because it's arguably too interesting. There's too much to see.
It makes me deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like,
what's your stance on Elf?
I went from really liking that movie to that like there was that era where like every single Will Ferrell DVD was filtered through every single person you knew for like 8 years straight. And I burned out on it. And now that I have a kid, I enjoy it again. Like that's made it into the rotation.
That's kind of where I was at too.
Yeah.
It never particularly clicked for me. I'm trying to think if there's anything in there that actually made me laugh. That's sort of I think as a Christmas movie, it's fun enough, but as a Will Ferrell comedy, it falls flat. And like, I don't get, it's like, he's, I mean, when he's funny, he's really, really funny, even when people quote him to death. But like his best stuff is brilliant. But and like I feel like he really kind of dumbs it down is the wrong term. I think makes it a little bit more accessible, a little bit less abrasive for Elf. And I have a theory about Elf, which I can't prove unless I talk to Jon Favreau.
Did they make all the toys?
I think the elves do it. No, you know the whole bit in the beginning where he's like he's at Santa's North Pole or whatever, and he's hanging out with the elves and all that. I feel like Jon Favreau originally wanted that to just be all Rankin Bass creatures. Like he's the one human and everybody else is like weird little claymation puppet people. And there's the part where he like talks to a whale and a penguin or whatever. But
it's like a narwhal.
Yeah, I feel like he wanted the whole thing to be like that. And if that had been the case, it would have been so much more of a interesting leap. Like there would have been a sense of really kind of like going from one world to another. But the fact that it was sort of just, you know, human people hanging around.
I mean, I think I'll say the same thing I said for, you know, Bad Santa, in that like this is one of the modern ones that cracked through and made it into the rotation. So that's hard enough to do. I mean, like Home Alone 1 and the far more cynical and sinister Home Alone 2, which is just like in Home Alone 2, he's like, I'm not even going to do a trap. I'm just going to throw a brick at your fucking head.
It's also not his house. He lures them there.
It's not even his house. Yeah.
That's just a Saw movie. Like that one's warped.
Yeah. I mean, but I enjoy both those movies. I put them on. It is, you know, they have their own set of issues, but they're fun enough. I will say one thing that I really like is the original animated Grinch movie. And what I really don't like is the live action ones where like human men are wearing prosthesis.
There's a lot to see in there.
Those I don't like that.
And that's also that's kind of a generational thing, because that I feel like that and Elf and Polar Express all kind of came out in a window where we weren't particularly family oriented people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like there's probably people who are younger, who grew up watching that, or people who are a little bit older who watched it with their kids, who have like a much softer spot. Not just in their brains, but also for these films. I don't. What do you think about the Santa Claus?
Probably one of the most effective pieces of body horror ever. Like, I mean, I think that's up there with like some of Argento's work.
Yeah,
and I don't even know what to say. Like that I put that in a box in my head next to The Fly and The Thing. Like. I appreciate it. I appreciate it for that. There's a movie called Clown, which is
it's the Santa Claus with a clown.
It's the same plot. It's just a guy who puts on a suit and then it becomes part of it. Just grafts onto his skin and he can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
And in one, like he becomes a clown and basically dies.
The Santa Claus, I don't know how, but they've made like 5 movies and there's a series. Yeah, they keep going, which is bizarre to me. Yeah, I don't know. I remember like having a weird period where I liked it a lot as a kid.
Yeah, me too.
Revisiting it, it's funny because Tim Allen is just like the shittiest, like toxic dad. Like he's not super toxic, he's trying or whatever. But the way that they vilify Judge Reinhold as like the other guy, or like the stepdad or whatever, who's like a child psychologist, and they're just like, what do you want for Christmas? And he's like, I always wanted an Oscar Mayer wiener whistle. And it's just like, can you be more heavy-handed about just saying this guy?
I think you should vilify somebody whose favorite toy was a whistle. Like
That's
of
fair.
all the toys,
That's fair.
like as you and I are both toy nerds, I think it's if we went to like a toy convention and there was this one guy who just had a table that was just whistles, we'd be like, did you time travel to get here? What are you doing? Like, have you heard of action figures, remote control cars? Like they sell drones now.
Yeah. No, I think the underlying thing there was like, this woke, sensitive man wants to put a wiener in his mouth.
Yeah.
All right, man.
That was definitely what they were going for there. I really like Charlie Brown Christmas because I think it's like 28 minutes or something.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
there's
something very warm
got
and
some nice, Vince Guaraldi music. Like it's just
it's very warm and fuzzy, and it's up there with the trilogy of Halloween and Thanksgiving that like we watch every year in my house.
The same thing I hated about Peanuts growing up is in that it's quiet and muted and depressing and nothing happens, is everything I love about it as an adult.
Yeah,
if I just want to have something on in the background that doesn't have any hooting or hollering or any too much excitement, like if my kid wants to watch something and I don't want her watching something, then I'll put on something that she probably won't enjoy watching, and then she'll be like, I am feeling like Charlie Brown right now. I got to go over here and do something else.
And they're all short enough, right, that you can. It's not like you're there all day. Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. That is an awesome movie, and it's one of those ones where it always feels like Halloween feels too early to watch that movie, and Christmas feels too late.
Thanksgiving just feels weird.
Yeah, Thanksgiving feels weird because that's when I watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's always a weird one for me. But I do like it. I appreciate it. I think that like it's one of those things where I think I was overexposed to it. Like, and I think that there's like there's a lot of things that we laughed about, like It's a Wonderful Life not getting merch, but like I think there's too much Nightmare Before Christmas stuff.
Yeah, I would like that movie a lot more if Hot Topic had never made sweatshirts of it.
Yeah,
it's one of those. It's just the ubiquity of it made it less special to me. That said, revisiting it with a kid, I love it so much. Like I love it so much, especially when it's like of all the sing along Disney shit that I could put on or that my kid could want to watch. The fact that she's like, play This Is Halloween. I'm like, you want a Danny Elfman song where he things about spiders in my hair or whatever. Like she started like singing along, like singing This Is Halloween on her own. Like she's learned enough words of it, and it's just like as I am the thing hiding under the stairs, snakes for fingers and spiders in my hair. I can't even remember the words, but like I don't know. Danny Elfman, again, also problematic, but like Oingo Boingo fucking slaps, and like and again, I'm also tired of Tim Burton, but like that's such a sweet spot for both of them, where it's like listening to just the musical arrangement on that. Like the first chunk of What's This is just Danny Elfman like firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Like that's when he was like, okay, let me give you the Batman theme. I just did the Simpsons theme. Like he's got a bright future ahead of him. And that was also him being like, oh, I get to take all of my, weird, spooky goth kid theater energy from my Oingo Boingo years and channel it into a Christmas movie. I'm so glad that thing exists. It's awesome.
Which, speaking of which, Batman Returns is one of my go-tos every year. I love watching that movie. The older I get, the more I can sort of see the seams in it. Like it's very clearly just filmed on like 3 or 4 sets that are just shot from different angles. But there's so much fun, weird, grim, messed up Christmas shit in that movie. Like it really just grabs that holiday by the bat ears or whatever, and then just brings in a whole bunch. Like Max Schreck is just like, he's such a Christmas villain. He's got this like weird white hair and all that, and Selena Kyle as or Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, the Penguin with like all his little Danny DeVito with his little Christmas animals. Like it's great. It's great.
I grew up being exposed to Danny DeVito fairly regularly, like with like Twins and like the Penguin and then Matilda, and like I knew who he was from a very young age because he's a very memorable character. And I feel like usually as you grow older with like someone who you kind of are aware of from that young of an age, you get tired of them or you kind of drift away, or you were like, oh, actually that person sucks. But in Danny DeVito's case, it is the exact fucking opposite hard, where I'm just like, oh no, you're amazing. You're the best. Like the fact that he was in like the Penguin outfit and he was just like scaring his co-stars, just like flapping around.
And then he's like the dad in Matilda, and then he shows up on like 10 years of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Like he's
the
awesome.
Matilda thing, and that's a story for another day when we talk about how great Roald Dahl is, and by association that movie. He directed that, which is awesome. Right. And he and his real life wife Rhea Perlman play Matilda's abusive parents, but Mara Wilson, who plays Matilda, her mom was like dying of cancer when she was filming that, and Danny DeVito basically like adopted her. And that's like, if I like that movie on its own, but having that layer to it just makes it so much better. But then also, this is Danny DeVito plays a horrible sewer mutant who bites a guy in the nose during a political rally. At least I'm not gushing blood from my face. No, the fun weird Easter egg that Max Schreck is the name of the guy who played Count Orlok in the original Nosferatu, and now Nosferatu is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I don't know. That's going to be. I feel like that's going to be one of those honorary Christmas movies. I do love how people have, taken like, oh no, the Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is a Thanksgiving movie, and it's like, yeah, I guess you're right. They have like a whole Macy's Day Parade scene. Yeah. And then Macy Gray is in the Macy's Day Parade, which is like, that's a very stupid visual gag that would not have worked in any other year. But Macy Gray was big enough that they're like, Macy Gray, Macy Day, why not? Let's do it. Spider-Man's there.
That was so good. When I remember seeing that in theaters and just being like, what? But just because it rhymes? Sure, why not? Yeah, let's roll with it.
It works. Good enough for me.
One of the we talked about Christmas Vacation National Lampoons very briefly, but that's despite the fact that like that set unrealistic expectations for me as a kid, thinking that I would grow up and get stuff like Christmas bonuses and a pool. What I love about that movie, coming from a big, loud, raucous Italian family, is that it really nailed that feeling of just like a ton of people coming into your house with their coats and just like making a mess, being loud, having like, some of them are really old and ancient, and some of them have weird dietary restrictions. Like there's a really great bit in that movie where the movie's doing its own thing with a small enough family the whole time, and then the extended family comes to the front door and they ring the doorbell, and they downshift pitch the doorbell sound repeatedly. So it's like ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. And it just sounds terrifying. And it's got a bunch of like really awesome horror gags in it. Like when they cut open the turkey and it's all dry inside. I
like that is the same scene as the autopsy scene from The Thing.
Yeah.
Just like cutting the thing open and it's just like,
There's like a cat and a squirrel that get into the tree or whatever and get electrocuted. The part where they're all like sitting around eating the dry turkey bones.
Yeah.
Like
there's so many
dumping excrement all into the street. Like there's so much stuff in there.
I never watched that one as a kid, and if I had, I don't know how I would have felt about it, but I did. Mm-hmm. I did definitely start to kind of identify with it as an adult, because like that's very much like you're supposed to like empathize with Clark Griswold or whatever.
Yeah.
Weird thing also, watch John Hughes's old movies and then watch the first season of The Simpsons, because it is just, they were just like lifting shit left and right.
Right.
Like the Simpsons pilot episode is just National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Like Bart Simpson is pretty much just Kevin McAllister. Like they were just like, let's just like, I mean, the Great Outdoors with John Candy. Like that's just the episode where him and Bart get lost in the forest, whatever. No, there's a part where, you know, Clark is hanging out with the Randy Quaid, and they're like drinking eggnog or whatever, and like the dog just keeps drinking the water from the tree. And he's like, "Oh, can you make him not do that?" And he's like, "Oh no, don't worry about it. He had a whole thing of motor oil earlier." It was just like that sort of dismissal of the complaint, to be like, "Hey, can you handle this thing that is clearly bothering me?" And the person being like, no, I will not do that. And it's just like, it's such a subtle little that movie is like stacked with those things. Those just like little interactions where things just go sideways. And
and it's all these little things that like the older you get, the more you kind of glom onto is like stuff that happens. Like I texted you this the other day, but I spent like 3 hours on a ladder, like just like really just perfectly putting Christmas lights all around the front of my house. It's like, now that I own a home, it's like something I get really excited for, is like decorating for Halloween and for Christmas and stuff like that. And I did all of that and plugged it in, and like there was literally an entire string that didn't light up, and I was like, oh, what the fuck.
That and trying to set up a tent are like two of these cliches that I remember being as a kid. I'm like, that seems sort of like over, you know, people are overreacting. That seems stupid. And then the first time you encounter it as an adult, you're like, oh, fuck this stuff.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's just got a bunch of really, really great stuff in it. And again, like it's old and it's got some problems. Like he keeps dreaming about cheating on his wife. Like he really just wants a pool so we can have sex with that lady from the department store.
No, he's a piece of shit. I don't know,
he's a piece of
great.
shit. You know, he kidnaps his boss because he doesn't get a Christmas bonus.
Also, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, vampire, elf. What do you think? Because she's like the neighbor in that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And she looks the same as she
looks
does
exactly
now.
The same.
It's what? How?
Mm-hmm. No, they those neighbors, like it's weird because the older you get, the more you kind of feel bad for them, because like they're assholes, but I don't think they deserve having like, you know, entire thing like gutters shot through their window in their bedroom and stuff like that. But no, it's great. I love that movie. It's another one where it's like it's tough. I haven't really seen it. I didn't see it straight through a ton until I grew up and owned it, and now. Every year, sort of like a needle drop, like I wait for the right time to watch that movie. Like I can't watch that movie December 1st or 5th. I have to watch that movie like the 23rd or the 24th. Like it's got to be as close as you can get to Christmas Day when I watch that movie, or Christmas Day itself.
What do you think about Muppet Christmas Carol?
Love it.
Yeah,
love it so much.
That's one of like I was not a Muppet kid. Like I really wanted to be. Like I have respect for their work, you know, but like I don't have any nostalgia for Muppets. Like I just didn't really consume them much growing up. And that wasn't because my mom was like, I don't want you watching that sick filth. Or it was just, she was like, you know, I just don't know why that didn't happen. But I know a lot of people love Muppet Christmas Carol.
That has, well, first of all, what's great about that movie is that it's got, it has humans and it has Muppets, and the humans treat the Muppets like they're people. Like at no point are they like, get out of here, you filthy little puppets or whatever. They just coordinate with each other and communicate with each other like it's a normal thing. But it also has one of my favorite gags ever, which is Gonzo doing the sort of like wrap up at the end of the movie where he's talking about what happens with the characters. And he goes, and Tiny Tim, who did not die. Like it's such a good joke. But that was my exposure to the sort of the, you know, Three Ghosts Christmas Carol story, which is, you know, was told in Scrooged with Bill Murray, which I also loved as a kid. And obviously like dozens of other adaptations, and some of them have been really dark and messed up, and some of them have been really fun. But Muppets Christmas Carol is one of those ones where it's like watch that as an adult, because like you'll appreciate it from like sort of like just a construction level of like, oh, they did some really interesting thing with like the three ghosts and like the whole, alternate death sequences for, with Scrooge and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of like really cool stuff in there.
Throw that on. I think my kid hates Muppets. I think it's one of those, like, I don't know, not an uncanny valley, but like, why would that thing be alive? Just don't show me that shit.
No, fair point. They shouldn't be alive.
Yeah. They probably, I mean, they look like they have like allergens in them, like they look like they'd be very dusty, like they would be moving and they'd just be like, just black mold flying off. I don't know.
That's fair.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what other Christmas movies I'm like really fond of. I think we covered all the big ones, but like it's funny how like everyone kind of gets into their their traditions for like their steady rotation.
Everyone has their own favorites, and like this wasn't a Wikipedia. This is just an informal discussion. So if we missed your favorite, apologies, but let us know what it is, because I'm always looking for new ones.
Mm-hmm. You ever see The Night Before?
I don't think so.
It's like Seth Rogen and Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Anthony Mackie,
yeah.
I think I like that one.
Mm-hmm.
I might have. Again, it's like one of those ones I've seen once through like an eggnog haze, and I've probably like conflated it with a different movie. I think there's like an Office Christmas Party movie that I watched that came out a couple years ago that I completely similar. I want to say it had Adam Devine in it. I could be completely making up this movie in my brain. No, I don't know. Yeah, it is hard to find. Like we want more of these movies. And again, there's a very high bar because the ones that we watched as kids, we've watched a million times, and they kind of they snowball enough to you could build snowmen out of them. It's just there's a sort of like you can't compete with this sort of comfort food of a movie you love nearly and dearly. Like I watched Home Alone with my kid, and like when I watch movies with her, a lot of the time I'm like sort of half paying attention because it's a movie I've seen a million times.
Yeah.
But that one I was just like watching pretty rapt. Like I was like just kind of watching it for the first time, like through her eyes or whatever, being like, trying to gauge her interest in certain things and also like explaining stuff. And one thing that I caught that I'd never noticed before that really just makes me, I don't think like Joe Pesci never actually has the tarantula on him. Daniel Stern, they put a tarantula on his face.
Yeah.
Joe Pesci, who I know that from like the movies that made us documentary, like they had to rearrange the entire shooting schedule because he just wanted to play golf every morning. Mm-hmm. If you watch closely, they take the tarantula, it gets thrown onto somebody whose face is not visible, who's probably a stand-in, and it sort of flips over, and then it cuts to Danny DeVito lying on the ground, and there's what's very, very clearly a perfectly stationary, probably fake tarantula. Like I feel like it would move slightly while being on a human body. And it's just this thing sitting there. And then the next shot is it like getting thrown down the hall or whatever. And I want to be a fly on the wall, not in the room with the tarantula because the tarantula would eat me, but with Joe Pesci when they're like, okay, so in this next scene, we're going to take this large spider and put it on you. And just him being like,
no,
you want to put this fucking thing on my body? You put is that entertaining to you?
What I love about him in that movie is that he invented an entire language because he wanted to curse.
Oh yeah, the Rassam Frassam thing.
Yeah, you and I have for years said that we're going to dress up as the Wet Bandits for something, and we never do it for Halloween. But we should do it for Christmas.
We should go to the Dickens Fair. Have you ever been to the Dickens Fair?
No,
do you know what the Dickens Fair is?
I do know what the Dickens Fair is.
The Dickens Fair, for anyone listening, is a thing that happens. I don't know if it happens all over the place, but they have it in the Bay Area. It's a Renaissance fair that's just Christmas. So they take all of the weird Renaissance fair people and they put them indoors in like a big, like it's at the Cow Palace, like a big convention center stadium type thing, and they build an entire like Dickensian
winter village.
Yeah, and they put like snow on the ground, and there's everyone's like ringing bells and boy for sale, boy, come collect your debt or what do you get? And what screws you up is that there's no daylight in there, so you just feel like you're in nighttime in like ye old England, and you get you can buy a bunch of booze from like people in corsets doing the worst English accent you've ever heard in your entire life, and it's just a whole other thing. But that's not a movie. That's just a place you can go and drink. But what if we showed up there dressed as the Wet Bandits? I don't know.
I think that people would love that.
People would
totally get into that.
Anyway,
Good idea.
Christmas movies. Hopefully everybody is watching some at home, and at the very least, throw on a movie that you like and then fall asleep watching it, because that is the true meaning of Christmas.
Oh, wait, hold up. One more thing. Before we go, just a very friendly reminder / desperate plea for all of our listeners to support the show however you can.
Each and every single like, share, subscribe, rating, review, follow, favorite, bookmark, upvote, and comment we receive helps us grow our audience.
Even a good up dog helps us out.
Every single little tidbit of organic interaction we get helps convince those cold, unfeeling algorithms that this show is actually worth anyone's time.
Good old-fashioned word of mouth works too, so if you think this show rules, tell people about it. Tell your friends,
lovers, strangers, enemies, whoever.
And of course, we might have mentioned kicking us $1 or $2 on Patreon is huge. Also has some really cool perks.
For instance, $1 a month gets access to bonus content. $5 gets you each week's episode on Tuesdays instead of Fridays.
And for a few dollars more, you can help decide the good, bad, and ugly topics for future episodes.
Head to patreon.com/thisthingrules to see for yourself. However you support the show, even if it's just making time to listen to us talk about our favorite stuff, you rule, and we love you for it. We'll see you next week. Or we'll hear you next week. Or you hear us.
You'll hear us.
We'll talk to you later.
Next week.
And last but not least, a big, huge special thanks to our Patreon executive producers for helping keep the lights on. Brennan Bova, Ben Burkhalter, Kevin Lemasurier, Steve Cam, Donald Cole, Billy McKendry, Chip Chunkling, Scott Davis, and Go-Go Jason Waterfalls. You are all fantastic. You rule. Thank you.
Who the fuck is Thurman? Is that you? Is your name Thurman?
Yeah.
Thurman Merman?
Yeah.
Jesus.